All right, let's look at some usability principles. So the first one is keep the user informed but not overwhelmed. Okay, so this is the sort of thing that updates people on what's going on in their website experience. So here's an example. If I click some sandals here and I go to buy them and I click add to cart, okay, I have to pick a size, okay. Now I can pick them, add them cart. You can see that a little pop-up here has come up. It says there's one item in the cart, and through that I know kind of what's going on, and I can hit the back button and I can go back to my shopping. Okay. Another simple example, if we go to YouTube and we watch a video here, okay, it's Queen's Greatest Hits. You can see it's telling me how much is left in this video, and there's a status bar. I can see what's going on. That's another example. And then we also have like downloads. So if I click Photoshop, if I click update, okay, what's my password? It says waiting. Okay, so I know that it's doing something, and then hopefully in a minute here we'll start to see like a download. So there you go, updating, tells me 0%, 1%, and I've got this little thing here. Other examples are sound cues. If you use Outlook, it makes a ding when an email comes in. Same with your cell phone, maybe you have that setting. So that's all it is for the first principle. Keep the user informed but not overwhelmed. The next one is match the conceptual model and the user's mental model. So the mental model is how you feel personally in your head that something works. And the conceptual model is what the designer builds. It's what the actual design output ends up being. So you can see this picture here. We've got this handle, right? And the handle looks like it's for pulling, but if you push it, but maybe you pull this door handle and the door doesn't open. In that case, the designer didn't match the mental model, what I think a push handle looks like, with an actual push handle, right? So you want to match those up. So the shopping cart's another good one, right? This shopping cart fits our idea of where we put things that we want to buy. It makes perfect sense to us. Like if I want something, I put it in my cart, and then I can buy it down the road. Okay. Other things that fit the mental model. Here you can see this search, this magnifying glass. For a lot of people, that fits the idea of searching. Okay. Then some of them are more abstract. Like if you look at this play button, play and buy now. I mean, I don't know if that totally fits the mental model, my mental model of buying something, and the play button. Maybe a dollar sign would have been better there. So just keep in mind this idea that what people think things mean, or what people think things should do, and what the designer thinks they should do, are not always the same thing. So that's the basis of making sure that the conceptual model and the mental model match up. Then you have customization and control options. So you should be able to play a video, you should be able to pause a video, you should be able to change the volume, you can skip the ads. But another thing is turning on captions. Turning on captions is a customization option that is super important. Can you have like a mini player? Can you have a full screen player? What's this one here? I don't even know what that one does. Another thing you'll see very often is on cell phones. When you're looking at a cell phone and you can change the font size, that's important. And then some customization control options are, can you bookmark a page so that it's always where you want it? Can you turn on and off places like these quick buy options on Amazon where you can have one-click purchasing? You may or may not want to turn that on. So that's customization and control. And the reason this one is so important is because a lot of times we look for the right answer. What's the right design solution here? Oh, here's another customization and control option. We can do, we can change the country, right? Yeah, here we go. So we can change the country that we're shopping in, so we can look at other stores. And another thing you can do is you can stay in Canada, but you can change the language to, say, French, for example. And anyhow, the main thing is, a lot of times as designers, we're trying to find the right answer. Like, what's the best size typeface? What's the best language? What's the best color? But if you can let people pick, then you actually don't even have to solve those problems anymore. People can solve them for themselves. All right, consistency and convention whenever it facilitates usability. What do I mean by that? If you look at most menus, they have file, edit, view, and most browsers have these history, bookmarks, people, they have these sort of same options. And new tends to be the first under file, and then you have open, and then you have save, and then you have print. And if you're on Windows, I think you might have like close. So, when you keep it consistent like that, people are much more easily able to like just jump into a program and start using it. They won't be frustrated. Another important thing about consistency is pattern. Okay, so if I Google, Amazon search men's sandals. Okay, so this is a pattern here. We've got the picture of the item on top, and then we've got the brand, and then we've got the description, then we've got the rating and the price, right? And so now I don't have to like think about this anymore, right? Because this is just a consistent pattern, and it happens every time, no matter how I search, and I can just sort of like vaguely look at this without even really thinking and know what I'm seeing and know what I'm looking at, right? So that's the basics of consistency and convention. Yeah, actually, the shopping cart, that's another one. That's another convention, right? That's why it works. There was an example where someone changed the shopping cart to a shopping sleigh at Christmas, and like users couldn't figure it out. It was kind of a mess. Okay, prevent errors. So you don't want people to be able to do things that they didn't want to do in the first place. So if I go down to my recycle bin here and I go to empty it, it's going to say, are you sure you want to do this? Okay, because they want to make sure that I'm not accidentally deleting things, or that I know that this is a permanent thing. I mentioned one-click buying before. I don't have it turned on right now, but one-click buying is a feature where with one click you can buy a product, and it's pretty dangerous because if you accidentally buy something with one click, okay, so there you go. So this takes me right to checkout. When I click that, it skipped welcome, it skipped address, it skipped items, it skipped wrap, ship, and pay. It just went straight to placing your order. So I still have to click this last button to do it, but there wasn't a lot of room here for me to correct my errors. One click and I almost bought a $100 pair of sandals. So that's something you want people to be able to turn off and on, definitely, because it could cause people to do something by mistake. It allows an error to happen, a pretty serious error to happen. Other things, like sometimes when you're filling out a form, and the form will show in grayed out like the date format or the postal code format, it gives us little hints, and then it just stops people from not typing in their postal code properly, or not typing in their address or whatever. Yeah, so these cues that make it harder to make a mistake. Some other little cues, so that you're on a button, for example, so that you don't mistake something for a button when it's not, is that buttons tend to light up. Like, see how I'm hovering over them and they light up? That's, cueing you in to know that you are over a button, and, that something will happen if you click it. So, all right. Robustness. So whereas preventing errors is about preventing errors, robustness is about recovering from errors when they're made. So, good design doesn't just avoid problems, it course corrects when problems happen. So if you've ever gone to try to go to a web page and you get an error message of some kind. Something like this. Can't find object, catastrophic failure, problem connecting, check your internet connection again. So this one here, check your internet connection, it kind of helps you because it's telling you that it looks like the problem is something to do with your internet and not something to do with the website you're trying to connect to. You know, an even better error message might say, reset your router. Here's how to do it. So robust error messages help people get a solution. They don't just say something's wrong. They say something's wrong. Here's what's wrong, and here's what you can do about it. Another example is, you know, if you're filling out a long form, okay, and you get to the very end and like one tiny thing is wrong and you go to submit the form and it loses all the data you've done, that is not robust. Robust would be if it remembered everything you filled in, if it somehow told you that those were right. In this example, I've got like a green check mark. And even better would be whatever is wrong, if it highlighted what's wrong, it told you why it's wrong, and it told you what you could do to fix it. So robustness is just, sometimes people use the term anti-fragile. It's things that get better when there's a problem, right? Here's another one that's kind of strange. Recognition over recall. Other people say, don't make me think. Recognition over recall is an idea that you can't always expect people to remember things. They should be able to recognize or figure out what they're trying to do very, very easily. So say I was searching something the other day and I start to type it in, you know, oh look, Amazon remembers, you know, some common searches that started with the words. So I don't have to remember, I can recognize it here on the screen, men's sandals. So I'll click men's sandals. And then once I get there, if I'm like, oh, like, what was that brand? That's really cool these days. You know, what was it? I can like come along the side and, well, actually looks like I can't search brands. Or maybe I can. I maybe have to drill down. Okay, here. So there's Under Armour, New Balance, Nike. You know, it's not expecting me to know these things. It's giving me these options, and I can recognize the ones I want. And that way I can sort of like drill down and narrow in. So I'm not thinking. I'm not really using my memory. I'm using options that Amazon is providing me to drill down to the things I need. And, you know, if you're on like a really huge web page, then, you know, this can be extra helpful, especially if maybe you're troubleshooting something. You're trying to figure out what's wrong with your program or your computer, and it's impossible for you to recall what you need to know because you don't even know what that is. You're trying to figure out what it is. So recognition means that people can recognize what they're looking for. They don't have to already know it and remember it and go get it. Okay. Pattern, by the way, also helps with this recognition, right? That the pattern of this layout, of this grid layout, and the brand, the title, the rating, and then having the little prime icon at the bottom. This is a pattern that, again, makes it really easy for me to take this information in. I don't really have to read this over and over and over again. I can just kind of really quickly skim it, and things will jump out at me because the pattern simplifies. Okay. Now flexibility. So flexibility can mean a whole lot of things. Flexibility can mean that the content is consumable in multiple ways. So, you know, this is an image of a New Balance flip-flop, and if I inspect it, let's see, does this image have a alt text on it? It doesn't look like it does, but it could just be that I'm not seeing it. So flexibility means that content can be consumed in multiple ways, and that might mean visually, or that might mean with a screen reader, right? So a screen reader will tell me what I'm looking at. it might mean on a like a desktop layout, but it might also mean if I compress it. So see when I compress this, it's not really very flexible, right? Because it doesn't reformat to make the most of my screen size. So if you look at the web page that I kind of have here, when I compress it, eventually it gets to a point where it realizes what's going on and it narrows all the columns, right? So I have like a wide column, and if I squeeze it, I get a narrow column because it understands that maybe I'm using a cell phone right now because the screen is so narrow, right? Amazon wants you to use the app. That's why they're not. Dynamic in that way. Another thing with flexibility is, does it run on older computers? Does it run on newer computers? Flexibility is sort of a really wide thing. I mean, because that's the nature of flexibility, right? Does it work in all cases? So that's it for these. These are kind of, there's a lot of different lists like this about how to make something usable. These 8 are the ones that I thought were probably the best to just get people thinking, but there's entire books about it. The lists are anywhere from the top 5 to the top 101, so I encourage you to look out for them. But yeah, that's it. Okay, thanks.